Dr. Mike here for Renaissance Periodization. Too much technique focus is a bad thing. What? But is this the news lying to me again? Maybe. Let's find out. First of all, just to set the record straight, good technique is a good thing. It allows you to do a couple of really awesome things. First, it allows you to target the muscles that you want with precision. If you have shitty technique, it's kind of like, is that your lats doing that, or your biceps, or your triceps, or your quads? Who the fuck even knows? Great technique allows you to take the muscles you want to train and target them really, really well. In addition to that, it allows you to be safer, a lower risk for injury, and it imposes less chronic wear and tear on the joints. Holy shit, win, 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 win so far. In addition to that, by isolating more of the muscles you want to use when the exercise calls for it, it allows you to reduce the demand on your synergist muscles, reducing their fatigue and saving them for their own sessions. If you have dog shit technique on the bent over row and you're using your glutes and hamstrings a lot, it's going to make your glutes and hams tired for the day after when they have to do their own work. But if you do very strict bent over rows with really good technique, your glutes and hams are saved to have their own awesome session later on. Point number 4, lastly, if you can have really good technique and zap the target muscle, usually the external load, how much you're lifting, can be much lower than if you use bad technique. That lower external load with good technique allows you to have less systemic fatigue overall, which just keeps you training hard and hard and hard for weeks longer, allowing you to get better at everything and become more jacked, which, if you didn't check earlier, is the whole point of life. Now, that's all really good. Technique's super important, but there are ways to take it too far. For example, and gee whiz, I think we have 6 examples. Number 1, worrying about using other muscles too much when it's not a thing you should be worried about. The grand example of this is folks who are trying to alter their execution, their technique, their velocity for like lateral raises or any other kind of shoulder move because they want to decrease the involvement of the traps. Here's the thing. Is your problem really that your traps are too big or that your delts are too small? If the problem is that your traps are too big, I feel you. This is a legit concern. Fucking crickets, because none of y'all motherfuckers have traps that are too big. Sorry, single person out of 5,000 that has excessively large traps. You're the exception, of course. If you have shoulders that aren't big enough, you don't need to be worrying about what the fuck your traps are doing. You need to be concerned about what your shoulders are doing. And if your shoulders are still the limiting factors, who gives a shit if the traps get hit? It's like worrying about a glute pump from squats when your target is the quads. Did you also get a quad pump? Well, yeah. Was it the best quad pump you ever had? Yeah. So who gives a fuck about the glute pump? Are your glutes too big? Well, no, I don't care. Well, then you're good to go. Is there a way you could squat that gives you an even bigger quad pump, but less of a glute pump? Squat like that. But here's the thing. A lot of times, if you way overthink the technique, you end up turning the squat into more of a sissy squat, and then it targets your quads, targets your glutes less for sure. Check, we did that. But then because you're no longer stable and flat-footed and you can't use as much load, it actually targets your quads less. It doesn't allow them to work as hard. So then you kind of killed the goose that lays the golden eggs. Worry. Be more concerned about getting a ton of juice out of the target muscle, way less concerned about, are other muscles also contributing? As long as that target muscle is good, that's 90% of what we want anyway. Point number 2, ways to do too much technique focus. Worrying about unrelated limb positions. This is such a fucking thing. And as soon as I tell you what it is, you're going to be like, oh my fucking God. That's like half of all exercise comments. What do I do with my toes on the bench press? Legit question I've asked before. In powerlifting, that might be a good question because you want to get as much hip drive as possible into the lift. Bodybuilding, for like incline bench press, what do you do with your toes? Motherfucker, are you out of your mind? If you're thinking about your toes when you're benching, I can almost certainly tell you're thinking about the wrong fucking thing. You need to be thinking about 2 things. Am I pushing the bar hard with good technique? And maybe are my upper pecs feeling it? That's it. If you're thinking about your toes, holy shit, the fuck does that have to do with benching? Another one. Sometimes when you row, automatically when it gets hard, when you try to touch your tummy, you'll curl your forearms in this way. People are like, well, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be keeping your forearm straight. Here's the thing. When your neural drive is maximized to try to pull as hard as possible to activate as many of those big ass parts of your muscles, those motor units of your lats, of your mid traps, of your erectors to fucking contract as hard as possible, your body does some automatic shit. And this is one of them. If you're going to focus a ton on keeping your wrists straight, you're going to reduce that central drive to your back muscles a fuckload. So what's going to happen is, yeah, you're going to keep your wrists straight, but you're going to activate maybe 80 or 90% of what you could have gotten out of the muscles of your back. If you simply allowed your body to do whatever the fuck it does normally and focused on good technique and just fucking pulling with those muscles, and okay, yeah, it does this bullshit at the end, upside. You get way better activity and stimulus and growth of your target back musculature. Downside, you do this. Who gives a shit? You ever seen someone drop out of a program? They're like, yeah, man, my back was coming up. I was rolling the world, except my forearm flexion just got too fatigued. I tore a bunch of tendons in here, and I'm just fucking homeless on the streets of San Francisco. No, it's never fucking happened. People worried about the weirdest shit. Don't worry about that other small bullshit. Are you fundamentally having good technique? Is your back not doing this? Great. Now fucking pull and don't worry about the minor shit. Really, really, really important thing to do. Another one, I've gotten this one a lot. Which way do I point my feet on leg extensions or hamstring curls? Like imagine like looking at Big Ramy or fucking some other pro bodybuilder and be like, oh man, his hams are huge. I bet he points his toes in XYZ direction. Get the fuck up out of here. Your hamstrings have almost the identical activity no matter which way you point your toes. There's not a biomechanical reason or just even speculative reason why that would change a whole lot. And if that's the case, set your toes wherever the fuck you decide and just start curling or leg extending and just do whatever. Because if during the curl and leg extension, you're like, okay, I'm using my hamstrings, but I got to make sure my toes are like this, or like this, or like that, or like this. If you worry about that shit too much, again, the central drive to your actual target muscle is going to reduce as you think too much about toes. Don't worry, your toes won't hypertrophy. Point them whichever the fuck way is comfortable and do what it takes for the actual target muscle. Another one is worrying about concentric velocity. Remember, the correct answer for concentric velocity for hypertrophy is anything between maximum or up to like 3-second concentric velocity. But some people, that maximum really freaks them out. It looks to them like it's a violation of the mind-muscle connection, or they read somewhere that like reps have to be slow for hypertrophy. That's bullshit, by the way. And I'll get a lot of critique. Can you guys tell I'm fucking butthurt by the criticisms on my own Instagram? So like I'll do hamstring curls, lying hamstring curls. The way the force curve is set up on the machine, in order for me to be able to touch my, get full range of motion and touch my heel to my ass, I have to do a maximum or close concentric velocity. Like, so the shit looks like this and then slow, because the slow eccentric is a good idea. Boom, slow, boom, slow. And that concentric boom, a lot of people are like, Dr. Mike, shouldn't you slow down? Why? I don't know. Exactly. Right? There's no good reason to slow down. So a lot of people say like, well, I gotta like curl like this. Why? Fucking put some oomph into it. If you put oomph into it, if you try to go fast, a lot of times that's a little bit better than trying to go slow. Just trying to go fast when the weight is heavy and you're tired enough that it's not possible really generates a fuckload of the kind of tension that grows you. As if you're like this all the time, yeah, maybe it'll work, but maybe you're not even getting close to failure because you're so worried about being so slow. Right? The gym is a place of controlled violence. It's okay to fucking let the demons out as long as biomechanically and exercise physiologically, it's fine, and it's fine. So if you want to bench fast on the concentric, fucking do it. Don't worry about, I got to keep my elbows exactly like this and bench super slow. You will reduce the total activation of the muscles you want, and the growth won't be as good. Plain and simple. Another downside, another way too much technique focus interferes, is if you worry about ultra minor positioning when targeting muscles, okay? What hits the lats best? Underhand grip, neutral grip, or overhand grip? Notice where all the changes are. All the changes essentially stop at the fucking elbow. Is my upper arm changing at all when I'm doing this? No, it's fucking not even moving. So people are like, well, what kind of grip is better for lats? With it, to a 2% detection of difference, it fucking doesn't matter. So grab that shit with whatever's comfy, whatever feels good for that month or two, and fucking go hard on it. If you're like, well, I want to like, some people have the handles that rotate, and instead of just forgetting they have hands, putting in the versa grips and just pulling with their fucking elbows to get their back to go, they're like, okay, I gotta go like this. So they're pulling hard and it's going like this because that seems to be what actually optimized the movement. And they're like, no, I gotta go back in. If you can give a compelling reason to yourself how that insistence on being parallel will somehow maximize the exercise, fucking sweet, do it. But if you don't have a good reason, you're just really worried about which way should I be positioned, don't fucking worry about it. Just pick a position that feels comfortable, it feels like you can really contract your muscles, and use that for a while. And here's the thing, people are always looking for the optimal. Well, is this going to get me more jacked or this or this? All three. You can do one for 1 month, one for another month, and one for a month after, and then recycle. There's nobody stopping you. Next, avoiding lockouts. Because, well, you know, the lockout, it's bad because the bones. We already have a video on this. Avoiding lockouts is fucking stupid unless it's a good idea for an actual reason, not just because reasons, actual good reasons. If you don't have one, don't worry about avoiding lockouts. Lock out to your heart's content. Lastly, and this is a huge one, consider this its own section. A lot of folks who are doing a lot of this kind of stuff, super overly concerned with technique, what they do is as their loads get heavier or as they approach failure more closely over the weeks, they'll start to feel like their technique is falling apart. Now, mind you, to 99 out of 100 external observers, it looks fucking just fine. Nonsense. It's off. What they'll do is they'll say, okay, I'm curling 80 pounds. 80 pounds goes well. 85 goes well. 90, it feels off. I'm going to go back down to 80. No. I'm going to go to 75 so I can really get the technique right and then work my way back up. That kind of paranoia and that need to renorm your loads all the time to feel the good technique again literally prevents progression. It makes you stay well shy of failure and well shy of challenging loads for a much larger fraction of your training than if you just push it and try to conserve your technique into the stratosphere of heavy loads and close to failure training. You just get less done that way and less of a stimulus. Like, how many guys who are paranoid about technique and constantly take their squat back down to just the bar have fucking enormous legs? There's a reason for that. They're by design not trying to get enormous legs because they're freaking out all the fucking time. All right. So if you do a ton of this, and we all do it to some extent, even myself, as immaculate and mistake-free I am in the gym, huge downside, you're going to reduce your top-end motor unit recruitment, like the biggest, gnarliest parts of your muscle that grow the most. You may not even activate them or hardly activate them at all, and thus your most growth-prone muscle fibers end up missing out, and you just don't get as jacked. Big downside number one. Big downside number two is you cut your progression short because you're constantly renorming when anything is heavy enough or close to failure enough to really challenge your technique. And you renorm every time, and it leads to less muscle growth over time than you could have had. Now, mind you, in most cases, you'll still get more jacked, you'll still get stronger, but there'll be an alternate you in a universe, and if the universes ever collide, that motherfucker will bitch slap you back to the ground because he's more jacked, because he did what it took instead of being super paranoid about excessive technique shit. Now, okay, I just talked shit for like 20 minutes. How do we become better at this? How do we avoid these things? Simply not doing them may be not good enough. So here's the deal. First, before you do any technique, before you plug in and go for a set, reduce your cognitive load. You're not thinking about shit that has any technical relationship to not increasing your stimulus to fatigue ratio. So if you're like, hey, which way do I put my feet on hamstring curls? I'm like, well, which way have you tried? They're like, a bunch of different ways. I got you. Are any of those reliably more stimulative or reliably less fatiguing? You're like, no. Then it probably doesn't matter. Like, okay. So then just don't fucking think about it. Put your feet where the fuck is comfy and don't even think about it. Think about I got an idea, hamstrings and the rest of your technique and how hard you're working instead of that shit. Because as soon as you eliminate thinking about shit you don't have to think about, your job in thinking about technique and doing a good job in the set is 50 times easier. So first, take away all the shit that's needless, that has nothing to do with the actual muscles being involved or has no impingement on them. Which way do I hold the fucking lat pull down? Who gives a shit? Pick one, stick to it. Next, focus on your technique super well at the entire time during the set. But before that, set your technique up in your head of what you're going to do. Lat pull down, okay? I'm going to pull to my sternum. I'm going to stay mostly upright. I'm going to be big stretch at the top, big contraction, and clavicles down at the bottom, everything down, and then back up. Okay, I know what I'm doing. Because if you know your technique ahead of time, you don't have to like invent new technique concerns halfway through the set, like, oh, should I be keeping my knees in? Know everything you're going to have to do, and then it's easy for you to just do it when the set comes. So rehearse ahead of time. Then, when you're doing the set, push each set hard. What that is guaranteed to do is two things. One, get you jacked, middle finger, and two, it's guaranteed to get your technique to start slipping at various times when the fatigue hits you during the set. It's going to start slipping. Here's the challenge in the next point. As your technique slips during the end of the set or during heavier loads or even in the middle, focus on bringing it back. How the fuck do you do that? Within each set, you can bring back to good technique by slowing your eccentric, hitting the right positions on the eccentric, forcefully coming back on the concentric and maybe locking out for a second, taking like a little bit of a shake. Like, so for example, if you're close grip benching and your shit is flaring way too much and that's no bueno, finish the rep. All right, reorganize. Still the set. Come down, elbows in, elbows in, elbows in, elbows in. Push, elbows in, elbows in, elbows in, elbows in, and I'm up. And then down back again. If your technique breaks down during a set, there's no reason to think that you can take a quick little rest at the top or bottom of a rep, or even take kind of a mental break by slowing the eccentric to be like, okay, when the concentric starts again, I'm going to push the right way, not the wrong way. Boom. You can always bring yourself back, right? You don't do this by slowing down the concentric or by stopping the set and be like, my technique was off. You can make adjustments on the fly. It's not that you can make. In order to be a high-level trainee, in order to get your best muscular gains, you have to do it on the fly. It's like the perfect rocket to be shot to go to Mars or some shit doesn't just get the angle completely correct from the beginning and just shoot in a straight line. There's always adjustments. Here's the deal. When you're firing a rocket, there's all this thrust going, a million pounds of thrust the other direction. That's fucking chaos. You still have to make adjustments in that chaos. They don't slow the fucking rocket down to make the turns. The rocket's speeding up and they still make the turn. That's how you have to think of your training. That's why doing good technique is so fucking hard. That's why it's so impressive when big guys with a shitload of weight still do good technique, is because it's a constant battle to rein the technique back in, and there's nothing wrong with that. You don't do it by stopping the set. You don't do it by slowing down the concentric. You do it by slowing down the eccentric and maybe taking a little bit of a breather between reps and going again, reminding yourself what has to be done. Between sets, so you finish a set and your technique was good. It got a little out of hand, but then you brought it back. Between sets, note what positions you have to have and take. Note what technique you have to execute in order to have an even better next set. Be like, okay, rep number 5, my elbow started flaring. Now I'm going to be on the lookout for that. So all the reps after rep 3, I'm going to be like elbows in, elbows in. And your next set is 50 times better. So not only are you good at managing technique within the set, between sets, you're prepared. You take notes from the set before. You're prepared to do better on the set afterwards. And your progressions, meaning, 5 more pounds every week, a rep here and there every week, they should end due to a very excessive fatigue, right? Or a very poor mind-muscle connection, or a very crappy stimulus to fatigue ratio. They should not end because your technique breaks down. To paraphrase Chad Wesley Smith, phenomenal powerlifting coach and strength coach in general, when you're lifting your heaviest, ideally, is when your technique should be the best. The idea that, oh, well, I'm going hard and heavy, the technique breaks down, bullshit. It wants to break down. It's up for you to bring it back. If you're ending your progressions like, yeah, I put 5 pounds in the bar here and there, but like it got too heavy, my technique broke down. Blah, 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 blah. No. You put more weight on the bar and maybe your mind-muscle connection started to deteriorate. Maybe your stimulus-fatigue ratio started to deteriorate. Try to get them to come back. Good technique. But if they don't, like, yeah, okay, shit's too heavy, shit's too out of hand. I'm going to stop doing this exercise, stop progressing, maybe like progress slower or maybe choose another exercise and go. Totally fine. Your technique, at least as externally visible, anywhere between 5 reps and 30 reps should basically look the fucking same. Wave my own flag here, but some of the comments I get on like Instagram when I post my actual training videos is like, I can't tell if this is like a GIF on a loop or like you're actually training. Every time I see that, I'm like, oh, that's nice to hear, because you should be like a fucking machine. And the only thing stopping you should be the load itself, not the fact that you're like, oh, my technique broke down when I go this heavy. Doesn't matter how heavy you go. Your technique should always be excellent. It should be a matter of personal pride for you to push that. And here's the last The last word on this, and it's very pithy. Watch out. Good technique only helps you grow muscle if it survives the foray, the movement into hard training. That should be your goal, to develop excellent technique and an ability to control it that you can actually use to train hard with. If you are the world's best sniper when there's no chance of you receiving enemy fire or getting discovered, and then when you are put into a combat scenario and you completely break down, you're not the world's best sniper. You're the world's best competitive entertainment shooter or something. The real world's best sniper, they're accurate when there's people looking for them, bombs going off, shells flying by, and they still fucking hit the target. That's how you have to view your technique. The purpose of good technique isn't to look good in your warm-ups and then the first couple reps, and then when you try to go hard, it breaks down. You go, oh shit, guess I better go light again. What, light for what? You're not going to get jacked like that. The real way to get jacked is to have excellent technique, and as you go closer to failure and the weight gets heavier, your technique stays, and it fades away, and you bring it back, and it stays, and it gets better over time. That's how you get jacked. Challenge yourself. Bring the realistic technique, not all this other bullshit fluff that gets the job done under control with hard and heavy training. And if you can do that, see you at the top of Mount Jacked. That's all I had to finish it off. See you guys next time.